The twin suns of Zeph Prime cast long shadows across the crystal towers as Admiral Vorthok stood on the grand balcony. His four muscular arms stretched wide as thousands of alien citizens filled the plaza below. Their excited cheers echoed off the gleaming buildings like thunder. Down the main street, a long line of human prisoners walked slowly between rows of armed guards. Their clothes were torn and dirty from the journey across space. Their heads hung low, but their eyes were alert. Citizens of the great empire. Vorthok's voice boomed through speakers built into every building. Today we celebrate the greatest victory in our history. The crowd roared with approval. Colorful banners hung from every window. Children sat on their parents' shoulders to get a better view of the defeated humans. Dr. Jinwoo walked near the front of the prisoner column. He looked tired and beaten, but his mind was sharp. While keeping his head down, he studied everything around him: the guard positions, the building layouts, the weapon types, even the small details like door handles and window locks. Next to him, Engineer Solman did the same thing. She counted guards and noted their patrol patterns. During the long space journey from Earth, she and Jinwoo had learned to talk with tiny hand signals and eye movements. The aliens never noticed. Giant screens appeared in the air above the plaza. They showed scenes from the war on Earth: human fighter jets exploding against alien energy shields, tanks burning under plasma fire, cities surrendering after just 3 days of fighting. The Zephyrian crowd laughed and pointed at the images. To them, humans looked weak and stupid. Their weapons seemed like toys compared to Zephyrian technology. Look how they fought with metal bullets, one alien shouted, and chemical rockets, laughed another. So primitive. Admiral Vorthok smiled with all three of his mouths. The war lasted only 3 days. Their resistance was pathetic. Now 10 billion humans work for us across 1,000 worlds. More cheers filled the air. Some aliens threw flowers at the prisoners. Others held up signs celebrating the victory. But Jinwoo was not thinking about flowers or signs. He was watching how the guards held their weapons. He noticed which ones looked tired or bored. He saw which buildings had the most security and which had the least. Across the column of prisoners, he spotted Hai In-soo. The former military strategist looked like just another broken captive. But when their eyes met for just a second, Jinwoo saw something else: intelligence, planning, determination. Hai In-soo had been one of Earth's best military minds before the invasion. He had studied every battle in human history. Now he was studying this alien empire the same way. The two men shared the smallest nod. It lasted less than a heartbeat. The guards did not notice, but in that moment, they confirmed what they both already knew. The Zephyrians thought this parade showed their strength. They thought the war was over. They thought humans were defeated and broken. They were wrong about everything. So Dashmin caught the signal between Jinwoo and Hai In-soo. She passed it along to other prisoners using the same tiny gestures they had developed. The message spread through the column like an invisible wave. The aliens had made their first big mistake. They thought conquering Earth's military meant conquering Earth's people, but soldiers were just one part of humanity. The real strength came from everyone else. Engineers like Somin, who could build anything. Doctors like Jinwoo, who understood how living things worked. Strategists like Hai In-soo, who could plan for any situation. And millions of others with skills the aliens had never imagined. The parade continued through the Crystal City. More aliens came out to watch and cheer. They took pictures and videos to remember this great day. Some brought their children to see the defeated humans. But while they celebrated, the prisoners were working. Every step taught them something new about their captors. Every building showed them a weakness. Every guard revealed a pattern they could use later. The Zephyrians had built their empire on the idea that superior technology always won. They had never faced an enemy that could learn and adapt. They had never fought people who refused to stay. Defeated. As the parade reached the city center, Admiral Vorthok raised his arms again. Let this day be remembered forever. Let all worlds know that the Zephyrian Empire cannot be challenged. The crowd cheered louder than ever. Fireworks exploded in the sky. Music played from hidden speakers. It was the biggest celebration in the Empire's history. But down in the prisoner column, Jinwoo was thinking about something else. He was thinking about all the humans scattered across 1,000 worlds. Engineers fixing alien machines. Doctors treating alien patients. Scientists studying alien technology. The aliens thought they had slaves. What they really had was 10 billion teachers showing humans how their empire worked, and humans were very good students. The victory parade moved on through the crystal streets. The aliens celebrated their triumph. The prisoners shuffled forward, with their heads down. But inside those bowed heads, brilliant minds were already working. Plans were forming. Networks were being built. The Zephyrians had won a war in 3 days. They had no idea. They had just started a much longer one. 6 months had passed since the Great Victory Parade. Commander Zilthrex sat in his control room high above the capital. City screens covered every wall, showing data from across the Empire. But today, the numbers made him feel sick. His assistant rushed in carrying a data tablet. The young Zephyrian's hands shook as he spoke. "Sir, the reports from the mining worlds are here. You need to see this." Zilthrex took the tablet and read the first line. His 3 eyes widened in shock. "This says mining output on Kepler 442 is up 400%. That cannot be right. I checked it 5 times. Sir, the human work crews are pulling more ore from the ground than our best machines ever did." The commander felt a cold fear in his stomach. He opened more reports. Everyone told the same impossible story. Humans were working better than anyone expected. Much better. On the farming world Verdes, botanist Yunji knelt in the alien soil. For months she had been secretly studying how plants grew in this strange dirt. The Zephyrian guards thought she was just another worker. They did not know she had 3 degrees in plant science from Earth. Working next to her, mechanic Dong Hin fixed farming machines during the day, but at night he changed them. Small improvements that made them work faster and better. The aliens never noticed because the changes looked like normal repairs. Together, Youngji and Dong Hayan had figured out how to grow 3 times more food than before. They shared their discoveries with other human workers using hand signals and whispered words. Back on Zeph Prime, more reports reached Commander Z. His office filled with worried officials as the news got worse. The humans on Factory World 7 solved an engineering problem our best scientists could not figure out, one officer reported. On Research Station 12, human workers learned our computer language in 3 weeks, said another. Our own students take 3 years. But the most frightening report came from Intelligence Chief Morthax. The big alien burst through the office doors, his usually calm face twisted with worry. "Commander, we have a serious problem. The surveillance computers are picking up strange signals between human camps." Zilthrex leaned forward. "What kind of signals?" "Short bursts of data, too fast and complex for our systems to understand. The humans are talking to each other across space, and we cannot decode what they are saying." On distant worlds, the human network was growing stronger every day. Engineer Kung Ho worked in a weapons factory, learning how Zephyrian plasma rifles functioned. He memorized every part and every process. At night, he sent coded messages to other humans using maintenance signals that looked normal to alien computers. Programmer Minna had an even more important job. She worked on the computer systems that controlled entire planets. The aliens thought she was just fixing small problems, but she was actually mapping their networks and finding ways to access them later. The humans had learned to hide their intelligence. They acted slow and confused when aliens watched them, but when alone they worked with the skill and speed that had built Earth's greatest cities. Intelligence Chief Morthax pulled up more data on his personal screen. The patterns were clear but terrifying. "Sir, look at this learning curve. Humans are not just adapting to our technology, they are making it better." Commander Zilthrex studied the charts. In just 6 months, human workers had improved mining efficiency, farming output, factory production, and computer processing across dozens of worlds. The improvements were small individually, but together they represented something impossible. "How can a primitive species do this?" he asked. Moore had been studying human behavior since the first strange reports arrived. His conclusion chilled him to the bone. "Sir, I do not think they are primitive at all. I think we completely misunderstood what we were dealing with." The intelligence chief brought up recordings from Earth's conquest. They showed human cities, human technology, human resistance. But now he was looking at them with new eyes. "We focused on their weapons and vehicles. We saw metal bullets and chemical rockets and called them weak. But look at their cities. Look at their infrastructure. Look at how they organized billions of people across one planet." Zilthrex began to understand the horrible truth. "You think we made a mistake. I think we conquered their military and assumed we conquered their minds. But soldiers are just one part of human society. We also captured their engineers, their scientists, their doctors, their teachers. We gave the smartest species in the galaxy access to our most advanced technology." On Mining World, Kepler 442, human supervisor Jung Ho stood before a massive ore extraction machine. 6 months ago, It had been producing at normal levels, now it worked 4 times faster and with half the energy consumption. The alien overseers congratulated themselves on choosing good human workers. They did not realize that Jung Ho had a doctorate in mechanical engineering and had redesigned their entire operation. Similar scenes played out across the empire. Humans who appeared to be simple laborers were actually experts in their fields. They had been studying alien technology with the focused intensity of people who knew their lives depended on learning everything they could. Commander Zilthrex closed the final report and looked at his assembled staff. Fear filled the room like a poisonous gas. "How many humans did we distribute across the empire?" he asked quietly. 10 billion, sir, spread across 1,000 worlds. The commander felt the weight of a terrible realization. They had not conquered humanity. They had given humanity access to everything the Zephyrian Empire had built over centuries, and humans were very, very good at learning. The Great Hall of the Zephyrian Science Council stretched high above Dr. Yansu like a crystal cathedral. Dozens of alien scientists sat in floating chairs that moved silently through the air, their strange eyes all focused on the small human woman standing in the center of the room. Her hands were tied behind her back with energy bonds that glowed blue in the dim light. But her back was straight and her voice was strong. She had been brought here to answer questions about the impossible things humans were doing across the empire. "Hi." Scientist Cortex floated down from his elevated position. His face clicked and buzzed as he spoke. "Hune, you will explain these anomalies. How do your people learn so fast? How do they improve our technology?" Yansu looked directly at him without fear. When she spoke, her words were in perfect Zephyrian language. The accent was flawless. The grammar was exact. She had learned it in just 3 months. "You want to understand us? Then I will tell you what you missed when you studied our world." The alien scientists leaned forward in their chairs. They had been puzzled by human behavior for months. Nothing made sense according to their understanding of primitive species. "You sent scout ships to Earth for years before your invasion," Yansu continued. "You watched our cities. You counted our weapons. You measured our technology. You decided we were weak and backward." Cortex's mandibles clicked impatiently. "Your species had barely reached space. Your weapons were chemical and metal. Your computers were primitive. How do you dispute these?" Faxiansu smiled, but it was not a happy expression because you only looked at the surface. You never studied the most important thing about humanity, which is our history. The room fell silent. The floating chairs stopped moving. Even the air circulation systems seemed to pause. "Earth is not like your world," Yansu said, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "Your species evolved on a peaceful planet, a stable climate, few natural disasters, no major predators. You had time to develop slowly and safely." She gestured with her bound hands toward the crystal walls. "Look at this beautiful city. Look at your advanced technology. You built it all in comfort and safety. But Earth taught us different lessons." The alien scientists began to shift uncomfortably in their seats. Something in the human's voice was making them nervous. "For millions of years, Earth tried to kill us, ice ages that lasted thousands of years. Our ancestors survived by learning to adapt quickly or die. Plagues that killed half our population. We learned to fight disease and help each other survive." Yansu's voice grew stronger as she spoke. "Predators hunted us when we lived in caves. We learned to be smarter and faster than anything trying to eat us. Volcanoes buried our cities. Earthquakes split the ground under our feet. Floods washed away everything we built." The room was completely quiet now. The aliens had never heard Earth's history told this way. "But the worst teacher of all was ourselves," she continued. "We fought each other for food, for land, for water, for ideas, wars that lasted generations. We learned to survive even when other humans wanted to destroy us." High Scientist Cortex's 3 eyes blinked slowly. "What does this have to do with your current abilities?" "Everything," Yansu replied. "Every human alive today is the descendant of survivors. People who lived through the impossible. People who adapted when adaptation seemed hopeless. People who learned new skills when their old ones were not good enough." She looked around the room at all the alien faces. "We do not just adapt to new situations. Adaptation is built into our bones, our blood, our minds. It is what we are." Far across the empire, her words were proving true. On mining world Kepler 442, telecommunications engineer Wujin had just established secret contact with human groups on 17 different planets. He used maintenance frequencies that the aliens ignored, creating a hidden network of communication. On Factory World 7, metallurgist Hay1 studied the hull plating of Zephyrians. She had found 3 critical weaknesses in their design. The information was already being passed to human engineers on other worlds, and on Zeph Prime itself. Maintenance worker Junho moved through the city's underground tunnels for months. He had been mapping every power line, every water pipe, every computer connection. The aliens had given him access to fix their systems. They never suspected he was learning how to break them. The human network was almost complete. Scattered across 1,000 worlds, 10 billion humans were sharing knowledge, skills, and plans. They communicated through work schedules, repair codes, and maintenance signals that looked normal to alien. Computers. Back in the Science Council chamber, Yansu delivered her final message. You conquered our military in 3 days. You thought that meant you conquered us, but you made one terrible mistake. What mistake? Cortex asked quietly. You assumed that defeating our soldiers meant defeating our people. But soldiers are just one part of humanity. You also captured our engineers, our scientists, our doctors, our teachers, our artists, our dreamers. Her eyes blazed with intensity. You gave the most adaptable species in the galaxy access to your technology. You spread us across your empire and put us in your most critical systems. You taught us everything we needed to know about how your civilization works. The alien scientists looked at each other with growing alarm. They were beginning to understand what they had done. Earth's children do not surrender, Yansu said. We survive, we adapt, we learn, and we never ever give up. The realization hit the Zephyrian Science Council like a physical blow. They had not captured slaves. They had imported their own destruction. The digital clocks across 47 worlds all showed the same time, 0300 Standard Galactic Time. In that moment, everything changed. On Zeph Prime, Junho crouched in a maintenance tunnel deep beneath the capital city. Around him, 20 other humans waited in the darkness. They had been preparing for this moment for 8 months. Every day, they had fixed alien systems and learned their secrets. Tonight, they would use that knowledge. Now, Junho whispered, into his communication device. Across the city, human maintenance workers pressed buttons and pulled switches. The beautiful crystal towers that had gleamed for centuries suddenly went dark. Power grids failed in perfect sequence. Communication towers stopped working. Defense systems shut down one by one. The Zephyrians had built their greatest city using human labor. They never suspected their slaves were memorizing every wire, every connection, every weakness. Alarms began to scream through the darkness. Emergency lights flickered on, casting strange shadows on the crystal walls. But the backup systems failed too. The humans had planned for everything. On the mining world Kepler 442, Engineer Tajin stood before a massive ore extraction laser. The machine was designed to cut through solid rock, but tonight, it would cut through something else. All teams. This is Tajin, he spoke into his hidden radio. The mining lasers are now weapons. Begin Phase 2. Across the mining complex, humans turned the alien machines toward guard towers and military installations. The same lasers that had extracted ore for the Empire now burned through Zephyrian defenses. The alien guards ran in panic as their own equipment turned against them. They had never imagined that the quiet human workers could become so dangerous so quickly. On the agricultural world, these chemists Sujin mixed compounds in what looked like a normal farming facility. But she was not making fertilizer for crops. She was making explosives. Her knowledge of chemistry had helped her understand how alien farming chemicals could be combined in new ways. The peaceful farming world erupted in carefully planned explosions that destroyed military bases and communication centers. Similar scenes played out across the Empire. On Factory World 7, programmers like Minna turned manufacturing robots into an army. On Research Station 12, scientists used laboratory equipment as weapons. On Transport Hub 9, mechanics sabotaged every ship and vehicle. The humans fought not with stolen alien guns, but with their minds and their deep understanding of the systems they had been forced to maintain. Every repair they had made, every problem they had solved, every piece of technology they had studied became a weapon in their hands. Admiral Vorthok stood on the bridge of his command ship, high above Zeph Prime. Through the windows he could see his beautiful capital burning, but then his own ship began to shake and shudder. "What is happening?" he shouted at his crew. "Sir, our life support systems are failing," an officer reported. "The air recycling is shutting down. The artificial gravity is fluctuating. Even our food replicators have stopped working." The Admiral's 3 hearts pounded with fear. This is impossible. How can our own ship betray us? The main screen flickered to life. A human face appeared, someone Vorthak remembered from the victory parade 8 months ago, but Dr. Ginwu no longer looked like a defeated prisoner. He wore a uniform made from salvaged materials and stood in what appeared to be a captured alien command center. "Hello," Admiral Jinwu said calmly. "Do you remember me?" Vorthok's mandibles clicked with rage. "You are supposed to be a slave. You made us repair your ships," Jinwu continued as if the Admiral had not spoken. "You made us fix your space stations. You made us maintain your cities and your weapons and your computers." Behind Jinwu, other humans moved with purpose and confidence. They operated alien control panels with expert skill. "Did you really think we were not learning how everything worked?" Jinwu asked. "Did you think we would fix your systems forever, without understanding how to break them?" Across the Empire, Zephyrian military forces tried to respond to the uprising, but their reinforcement ships developed engine problems. Their communication systems were jammed by signals from their own relay stations. Their weapons would not fire because the targeting computers had been reprogrammed. The humans had turned the Empire's greatest strength into its greatest weakness. The advanced technology that had conquered 1,000 worlds was now controlled by the very people it was meant to oppress. On Zeph Prime, explosions continued to light up the night sky. The crystal spires that had stood for millennia cracked and fell. The victory monuments built to celebrate humanity's defeat were reduced to rubble. Admiral Vorthok watched his empire burn and finally understood the terrible truth. The Zephyrians had not just enslaved Earth's soldiers, they had enslaved its engineers, its chemists, its programmers, its mechanics, and its scientists. Every human they had captured was an expert in some field. Every human they had put to work had been learning and planning and preparing. The quiet, obedient slaves had actually been the most dangerous enemies the Empire had ever faced. The victory parade 8 months ago had not been a celebration of conquest. It had been the beginning of the Empire's destruction. As his command ship's systems continued to fail around him, Vorthok realized that the parade through his capital had indeed become a funeral march, but it was not humanity's funeral. It was his own. Deep beneath the burning capital of Zeph Prime, Admiral Vorthok crouched in his final stronghold. The command bunker had been built to survive any attack, but now cracks ran through its crystal walls. Emergency lights flickered as power systems failed one by one. Around him, the last of his loyal officers huddled behind overturned tables and broken equipment. Their once proud uniforms were torn and dirty. Fear filled their eyes as explosions shook the bunker from above. The heavy doors burst open with a loud crash. Smoke poured into the room as human figures stepped through the entrance. They moved with confidence and purpose, no longer the broken prisoners from the victory parade. Dr. Ginwu entered first, wearing a uniform pieced together from salvaged materials. Behind him came Engineer Somi, her clothes bearing the symbol of something called the Human Liberation Front. Military strategist Hyan-Su followed, carrying a communication device that crackled with reports from across the galaxy. Vorthok raised himself to his full height, his forearms spread wide in a final show of defiance. "You fools, you cannot hold an empire of 1,000 worlds. Even if you win here, you will never be able to control what we built." So-min stepped forward, her face calm but determined. "Admiral, you still do not understand us. We do not want your empire. We never wanted to rule over anyone." "Then what do you want?" Vorthok demanded. "We want to go home," she said simply. Through the bunker's cracked windows, they could all see the once beautiful capital burning. Smoke rose from 100 fires. The crystal towers that had gleamed for centuries lay in ruins. But in the sky above, new shapes appeared. Transport ships descended through the smoke. They looked different from standard Zephyrian vessels. The hulls had been modified with human engineering. The engines burned brighter and more efficiently. The designs showed the mark of minds that had learned alien technology and made it better. Hyan-Su checked his communication device as new reports arrived. "Kepler 442 is secure. All humans evacuated. Factory World 7 is clear. Research Station, 12 reports successful extraction." More reports flooded in from across the Empire. On world after world, Zephyrian forces were surrendering as their own systems turned against them. Communication networks failed. Power grids collapsed. Weapons would not fire. The 1,000-year-old empire was falling apart in just 3 days, the same amount of time it had taken to conquer Earth. Admiral Vorthok listened to the reports with growing horror. "How is this possible? Our technology is superior. Our weapons are more advanced. Our empire has stood for a millennium." Hyan-Su looked at the alien commander with something that might have been pity. You studied our weapons and called us primitive. You counted our spaceships and called us weak. But you never understood the most important thing about humanity. What? Vorthok whispered. Earth taught us that survival is not about having the best weapons or the strongest ships. Survival is about never giving up, no matter how impossible things look. Jinwoo moved to the broken window and gazed up at the evacuation ships. Each vessel carried humans back to freedom, back to the stars, back toward home. Earth was not a kind teacher, he said quietly. Ice ages that lasted thousands of years. Diseases that killed millions, natural disasters that destroyed everything. We built endless wars between our own people. The alien officers shifted uncomfortably as Jinwoo continued. But Earth taught us something your peaceful world never could. It taught us that when someone tries to cage us, we find a way to break free. When someone tries to break us, we become stronger. More transport ships landed outside. The evacuation was proceeding faster than anyone had expected. Human engineering had improved the alien vessels beyond their original capabilities, so Min activated her own communication device. This is Liberation Command to all human groups. Phase 3 is complete. All personnel are to report to extraction points immediately. Across the galaxy, 10 billion humans began their journey home. They boarded ships they had secretly modified and improved. They carried with them knowledge of technology more advanced than anything Earth had ever seen. But they also carried something more important, the unbreakable spirit that had gotten them through this ordeal. Admiral Vorthok made one last desperate attempt to understand. But why? Why fight so hard just to leave? You could rule this empire. You could take everything we built. Jinwoo turned from the window and looked directly at the defeated alien. Because Earth's shadow falls over all who try to cage humanity. We are the children of a world that never let us rest, never let us be weak, never let us accept defeat. You cannot conquer a species that learned to survive by never giving up. Hyensu added. As the last human transport ship lifted from the burning capital, the Zephyrian Empire's communication networks carried a final message to their scattered fleets across the galaxy. Let this be recorded in your histories for all time. Let every species know this truth. Some peoples are not meant to be slaves. Some spirits cannot be broken. Some shadows are darker than the space between stars. The message continued to broadcast as the human ships disappeared into hyperspace, heading toward the distant blue world that had forged them in fire and ice and endless struggle. The humans were going home, leaving behind a broken empire and a lesson written in flame and darkness. The victory parade was over. Earth's shadow had won.